Hey,
All right, so we're live now. Let's just give it a couple of minutes to stream, a couple of minutes for people to start jumping in. And you have a copy of your book so that you can periodically show the cover.
yep.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Then it's all all to the good. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've joined the bridge. If you're listening from Facebook, go ahead and like and share the broadcast, and we'll check you out as the video progresses. Also, if you're listening from YouTube, then please hit the notification bell so that you'll get notified when whenever we have a broadcast. So, Preston, you don't have YouTube or Facebook on another device, do you?
Um, yeah, I think I do. Hold on one second.
Okay, yeah, you have to turn it off because
Uh,
we we're hearing a little bit of an echo.
okay, it didn't shut off. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. That's
Okay.
cool. That's cool. Okay, so so yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie's Foreman, I see you. Hey, see you. Hey, what's going on? Hey, so ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing in America, especially right now during the pandemic, where people have lost jobs, they've had to reposition income, reposition revenue. The biggest thing that gets us through or holds us back is credit. Right now, for example, if you've lost your job and you're trying to get through, you may be relying on credit cards. You may be relying on being able to get a loan or a line of credit so that you can make it through. Credit is very, very important. And so, my guest tonight is also very, very important. He's my blood brother, he's my big brother, Preston James. But he's also important because he's an author. He has a book called Playing the Credit Game, where he basically breaks down the credit game, literally, because credit is a game. In the book, he guides you through understanding what credit is, how credit works, how to take control of your credit, how to manage your credit, how to improve your credit, literally playing the credit game. Because as we'll discuss tonight we're just going to go through the basics and he'll be back for other shows. But as we go through tonight, just the basics, you'll learn that it's really kind of complicated and it's complicated on purpose, but it's not impossible to understand. So Preston has studied the credit game for a few years, and then he started advising people in terms of how to improve their credit. So he's a credit consultant, and now he's actually an author of that new book, Playing the Credit Game. Ladies and gentlemen, Preston James, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm good, brother. It's good to be with you tonight. Appreciate you having me on this, and we sharing this together.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I always like doing, no matter what my platform is, I like to make sure that I can give people information that I know that they need. And right about now, people need to understand the credit game. They need to understand how credit works. And so I'm hoping that as people are viewing this tonight, that they do ask questions. You can definitely post a question or a comment in the chat room, and we'll answer your questions to the best of our ability. So let's start with the very very basics, Preston. What is a credit score?
A credit score is a score that's calculated. There are three major credit bureaus, and they collect information about us, our spending habits, where credit may be extended. What are we trying to do? And they actually come up with a score, and that score tells potential lenders how you may be as a credit risk, if you will. So that's what the score is. So they score that based on all the information they have about you, and it tells people about you.
Okay. And so I think that score ranges from like what 350 to 850.
Yes.
What are the elements that go into the equation, mathematical equation, to determine a credit score?
Well, there's the standards are the length of credit history. So the longer you have credit, sustained credit, it shows that you know are responsible with credit. So the credit history is one. Your utilization, how much you actually use your credit. So you don't want to go to the max and spending your credit. It looks at any inquiries as well. The types of credit is important. So if you have a variety of credit, so if you may have maybe a purchase of a car, maybe purchased a home, or you may have a revolving credit. So a variety of credit also comes into play.
Okay. And so talk about the differences, or, well, I know you can't explain the differences because you don't work for the credit bureaus, but why are there differences in the three credit bureaus? We may have a, 650 on one, 680 on another, 700 on the next one. How does that happen?
Well, that's an excellent question, Daryl. One of the things that happens with credit bureaus is that they buy information or they sell our information. And there are some lenders who may only use one of the three major credit bureaus, or they may use two. So they may use two. If they're not using that third one, your information is not on there. So it's not calculated for them to actually come up with the score. So that's why you will have three different scores between the three bureaus for one person.
Okay, so now let's talk about one of the things that people get into, or they get into when there's a huge problem. For most people, and this is really problematic because a lot of Black people do this. We never check our score. We never know what our score is. We walk into a car dealership, for example, and we just sit there and hope and pray. We fill out the application and they come back and tell us what we're qualified for, how much we should spend, how much we're going to pay, and we never know. How difficult is it to actually check your credit score?
Well, it's really not that difficult. And you raise a really good point. It's a scary situation to be in when you're trying to get credit and you really don't know what's on your report. And you're hoping that they come out with some way to give you that vehicle that you've been sitting there for 4 hours trying to figure out how to get. So you really want to know ahead of time what's on your report. And we actually, by law, we are able to get a copy of our credit report every year free. And it's important that we have that, because if you don't know what's on your report, people are sharing information about you that's affecting you. And so you want to make sure that you know what's on there. Anything that you don't agree with, you believe that is erroneous, obsolete, you can dispute it. So that's why it's important to get that report.
Well, so how can we actually get it? I mean, you said that we actually have the legal right to access our credit report at least once a year. How do we access it without actually just calling up the credit bureaus or going to the credit bureaus? Are there other ways, or do we just go to the bureau?
Annualcreditreport.com.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get your report. And the credit bureaus are really understanding that people are, can be more savvy now as it comes with their credit and monitoring their credit. So they have certain things that you can pay for, that they may try to help you boost your credit, or they will give you a score. But the idea is that you can communicate directly with them to get the information too, because if you dispute anything, they actually have to send you a report and they have to respond to what you dispute. So that's another way that you're actually getting an updated report too. If you're actually disputing anything, as soon as they have to send that to you.
Okay, very cool. I see you came in. What's up, Kelly Gilmore, frat brother? Glad to see you in here. So let me ask you this. So now you've got someone who's trying to be proactive. They want to know what their score is instead of just going to the dealership and then crossing their fingers, hoping and praying. They see some things on the credit report that either don't look right or that are just outright false. Can they do anything about it?
Yes. And this is part of the credit game. I've been through it myself, which is one of the reasons why I decided to share some of my experiences in the book. I didn't get to this just from just knowing everything. We go through trials. So you can actually dispute it. If you get a copy of your report, you can dispute it directly with the credit bureau. Write a letter to them, telling them what you think the situation is, and they must respond. It's work to be done. I mean, I've done it a couple of times. I was so fortunate to be able to get together with a nice corporation that actually facilitates that and helps people in a number of ways. But that anybody can dispute it. You can do this on your own, but you really want to make sure that you are looking at other things as you're doing it too.
Okay, so basically, the things that people can they dispute, like if it's the wrong address, if it's the wrong job information? What can people dispute?
Yes, anything that you believe is erroneous or is obsolete, and obsolete meaning that it should not be on your report after a certain amount of time. So anything that you believe that is inaccurate, you can dispute that, and the credit bureau must respond to you to tell you what their findings are.
Okay. And so, so again, anything that's on there, so that's, if it's a credit card that's old school, that you think you paid off now. So, but let me ask you this, since I'm saying that, credit cards, here's a real dicey part of the credit game that's always crazy to me. This isn't necessarily the basics, but since I'm, talking about it, I want to throw this out here for you to deal with. Let's say I have a credit card from 1994 that I didn't pay. They wrote it off. It's called a charge off. It goes away. 2019, it comes back. Can I dispute that? It was my credit card, but it was 20 some years ago.
Yes, you can dispute it. And one of the things that people need to understand is just because someone is coming to you telling you that you have a debt and you say, oh, back in 1994, yeah, I think I did have that. But just because they're coming to you, don't automatically agree or assume that that is your debt, and you can actually dispute it. Particularly when you say this may be a charge off. There are some unscrupulous collection agencies that actually go around and either say that they have purchased your loan or they may have purchased it, but they don't have a relationship with you. You should be able to dispute those things as well. Right. You don't want to just go and say, well, yeah, it may have happened, so I'm just going to go on and pay. And as I'm thinking about this, one thing is important. I don't want people to think that just because these bureaus send you any information, because they're not governmental entities, they're private organizations. And so just because they're sending you information doesn't mean it's absolutely true, or same with collection agencies, and you have the right to dispute that information. And we need to exercise our right and take control of what's on our credit reports.
Very good, very good. So yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because, like I said, a lot of people don't even bother to look at their credit report. They don't know what's on the credit report until it comes time to try to make a big ticket item purchase, and that's a problem. So let's talk about some of the other aspects of a credit report, just so the people understand, because we're talking about the basics. What are inquiries, and how do they affect your credit report?
An inquiry is a potential lender is actually looking at your credit score. You may say you're trying to purchase a vehicle, so they're actually doing a pull of your credit report. An inquiry says something that you are trying to establish credit. You're trying to increase your credit, so it can affect your score. So there's some points that may come off on there because someone is actually looking. Inquiries also come if there's just a lender or someone who's actually just looking. You already have a credit card with them, and they may do an inquiry to see what's actually going on. But for the most part, an inquiry will show up if what we call a hard pull, that you're actually trying to establish credit, and it says something. So it can affect you in that way too. But the percentage for an inquiry is lower in the whole pie, if you will.
Okay. What are some of the other things that weigh more heavy or heavier? So, for example, does inquiry may be at the bottom? What about if you pay a bill late? Is that way heavier?
Yes, it's a higher percentage in the pie. So late payments, because again, late payments say that this person may not be responsible. So they want someone who's going to, if you have a bill, they want it paid. So if it's late, that's what it's saying about you too. So you're going to have that on there. Another factor could be the amount that you use. Say, for example, people get a credit card and they max it out. Or they think, some people say, oh, it's free money. It's just there. I pay it when I get to it. But when you use more than 30%, of what you're actually given, it also says a story. What it says is that you are really using your credit to get by day to day for the most part. And let me go back to something you said when you opened up earlier, because in these times, and this is why it's important now for people to really look at credit, because in the times that we are in right now with this pandemic, people are using their credit cards to get by for the most part. Income is affected in a different way, so that's happening a lot now, and it's understandable. And I say it's understandable because everybody gets in situations where things don't go the way we want them to go, and pandemic is one of those situations. So people are using their credit, but again, if you're doing that during this time, you still want to be responsible. And if you can't possibly pay the whole thing, monitor it, pay something. Communicate with the creditors right now. If you don't communicate with them, they will just think that you are just regularly not trying to take care of your responsibilities.
So there's two things in there I want to deal with. So the first thing is that you talked about 30% utilization. So let's talk about that a little bit more, because people think, like you said, they get a credit card, I'm going shopping, I'm going to run this up because this is free money. But basically, the way credit works, if I understand this right, is that your credit is better when you use less of it.
Well, there are two things. You can say that when you use less of it, or you can use it as long as you pay off by that due date. So the utilization comes up when that due date, and then there is a cutoff date when they begin to bill you in that billing cycle. So part of that credit game, and I can talk about that another time too, but part of that credit game is actually figuring out when those things are actually reported. All right. So the key is you don't want that to show that utilization to be high. You don't want that utilization to show as high on the report.
So even if you have a card, so the difference between revolving credit and installment credit is that revolving is like, isn't that like American Express, where you pay it off every month, whereas installment you have to pay regular payments? So, but you're saying that you should treat every credit card as though it's revolving and try to keep it paid off.
Exactly. You want to keep right any credit card that you have, you want to make sure that you're keeping those balances low, because when they're looking at calculations, they're not making a distinction between what type of card it is. They're looking at, is it late? Is it beyond the 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days? That's what's really being looked at.
Okay. And then the other thing that you were saying that I wanted to key in on is the due date. You were talking about the due date so that you could make whatever charge you have, but pay it before the due date. Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what does that mean? Trying to make your payment by the due date.
Okay. You certainly want to pay by the due date, because if you pay a day late, then that's a late payment. All right, because they give you the 30 days. So
no, I don't mean the installment. It sounded like you were saying to pay the balance before the due date or by the due date, so it won't count against you. Is that what you were?
Yes. For example, if you may have made a purchase in the beginning of the billing cycle, and the purchase might take you to 60%. If you really are watching your credit and you want to pay that down before the due date so they can get down below that 30%. So right. So that's what you want to do, because then they will actually report what is not. They report based on the due date, and then their billing cycle. That's what they actually report to the bureau.
Okay, and then something else that you mentioned too. You've been throwing out a lot of good tidbits. Something else that you mentioned. You talked about how if you have a problem, you should call the credit card or call the creditor and try to work something out. We know most people, if they don't have the money, they just stop answering the phone. But you're saying to call them and try to work. How open are they to working something out with you if you can't pay everything that you owe?
Well, I tell you, for most people, something is better than nothing, and the communication goes a long way. There are no guarantees, but it's important that people get ahead of it instead of waiting till someone comes after you, because once they start coming after you, then it doesn't make the situation any better. But letting them know ahead of time, and again, because of the times that we're in, if that communication is there, folks know that folks are having a bad time. The reality is that these creditors are in the business of making money, and so even in this pandemic, if they think that you are using your credit card too much because of what's happening in a pandemic, okay, they haven't asked that question, they may reduce your credit limit.
Mm, mm.
And so
And again,
right, and they make those kinds of decisions. Again, they may look and see what you're doing on your other cards, and then they may reduce your credit limit, even though you are spending and you may be paying off the minimum due each month on everything, but they make the determination that you might be too extended, and they may decrease your credit limit.
and that's a good piece of information there, because a few years ago, before I understood as much about credit as I understand, I was actually about to do a BK, so I was really just trying to maintain my Discover card. So I was paying the balance, I was keeping it low and doing really good, but they pulled my credit report and cut my credit limit in half. I was like, you dirty bastards. And it didn't make any sense. But so you're saying that that's what a lot of them regularly do. They're not just looking at your relationship with them, but they're looking at your relationship with other creditors as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now let's talk about some of the bad things, the negative things that are on your credit report. How hard is it to get things removed? Does it make sense if your credit report tanks? Should you just go do a bankruptcy, or should you try to work with the companies to get everything back in good standing? Which one makes the most sense?
Well, first thing what I'll say is about a bankruptcy. That's always a personal decision that each person has to make in terms of what they actually want to do at that point. And if they're going to do that, they definitely need to consult a bankruptcy attorney before. I suggest that before making that determination. But again, all is not lost. If you just stick your head in the sand, then all is lost.
That's right.
So getting to that determination for whether or not it's a bankruptcy or whether or not you're going to work with the creditors to try to take care of some things, it's a personal thing that that you have to do. The personal decision.
Okay, very cool. What are some of the other things that are basic about understanding your credit? I mean, we talked about inquiries. We talked about what actually goes into the credit. Can you give us an estimate? Like, what are the range is from 350 to 850. What are the scores? The ranges? What's good? What's beautiful? What's bad? Based on an actual score.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of folks say you want to get into the 700 club. All right.
Okay.
But again, the higher your score, the better buying power that you actually have. Meaning that the higher your score, the chances that you will have a lower interest rate is higher.
Okay.
So yeah, but again, people can begin to make major purchases even in the mid 600s. But you want to keep going higher if you can. And of course, when you make certain purchases, it's going to affect your score anyway. But you want to always just go higher. So specifically, you definitely want to be in the mid 60s going up.
Okay.
That's what gets you that buying power, the better interest rates, the higher your score, you're in a better position.
So you're saying at least like 650 and above is good.
Yes.
Okay. And good meaning you'll have more buying power. So I mean, is it possible to still get loans, still get credit cards, if you have like low 600 or maybe high fives?
High fives might be pushing it.
Okay.
Maybe when you talk about maybe 620, 630, you can begin to do some things. Or really at that point, what you want to do is begin to build your credit. And then there's some things that we can talk about later about how people can actually build their credit too, building on what they actually have. But you want to really look at getting people into that mid 600s and above.
Okay. And then so when you start talking about building your credit. And again, we're just doing the basics today. We can go into detail in another show. But when you start talking about building your credit, does that mean getting more credit cards, trying to get as many as possible? Does that build your credit?
Not necessarily as many as possible, but it's they're all called trade lines. So you want to put in maybe, say for example, someone may have a low score because they just don't. They may have had a utility bill. They may not have any credit cards. So you may want to start off getting getting a credit card. I mean, so just starting off. So each person's situation is going to be different when you talk about building their credit. What it is that they want to do. And I always say again, when you're doing this too, have a goal. Is the goal just to have a good score? Yeah, you want to be able to make purchases if something happens. If something happens to your vehicle, no one has $500 just sitting around in cash. You want to be able to have a card to do that. So again, that's the other reason why you have credit cards too, not to just go shopping every month.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that every credit card you get should have a specific purpose instead of just amassing credit, amassing debt, so that you can go to Macy's and tell somebody to just throw it in the bag.
That's right.
So
yes, exactly. Good. Yes, good point.
okay, so at what point do you start to look at your credit? You know, you lay out all your credit cards, and you pretty much get maxed out on most of them, and they're sending you offers, or you can go get more. At what point do you say, you know what, let me shut this down and work with what I have?
Well, you just said it. Work with what I have. We need to be responsible. And just because someone is going to extend the credit doesn't mean that you have to take it or use it. It may be good to have that you might spend maybe a little bit each month and you pay it off, but you got to be responsible with it. I mean, that's the key. Just because you're getting it don't mean you got to run it up.
Okay, yeah, because that's, again, as I stated earlier, a lot of people don't even know what's on their credit report, don't know how credit works. They basically just get a bunch of credit cards, run them up, and then their credit's bad, and they don't even know it until they try to get more credit. So before I ask you more questions, talk about how, before we even talk about how people can buy the book, what is Playing the Credit Game about? That's your first book. You're now a published author. Playing the Credit Game. What is that book about?
Playing the Credit Game is about understanding and managing your credit. Things we've been talking about, being responsible, understanding what's in your report, what your rights are under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. That's really what this is about when you're saying playing the credit game. There isn't anything out there that someone is going to tell you just one thing that this is everything that you need to do, or the creditors are going to hold your hand. It's really you understanding and each person's situation in terms of what their personal goals are, what's happening in their life, what has happened in their life is going to determine where they actually start. Again, back for me, as I mentioned earlier, I've done this a couple of times in terms of building my credit. Did it by myself. It's a really big task to do, but it's also good. It's always good to have somebody, a corporation that's you're tied to, that can actually help do those things. But it's really about understanding and not feeling as though when you get a loan, oh, they just did me a favor. Whew, I just got through that, and I'm just gonna blindly go. You want to really know what's happening ahead of time, and you taking control.
That's right. That's right. So that's what the book is about. How can people purchase the book?
You can start by going to playing the credit game at gmail.com.
Okay.
Playing the credit game at gmail.com.
Okay. And then how much is the book?
The book is $16.95, and you can go directly from the email that I just gave.
Okay, so people just send you an email and place an order. Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the other basics of the credit game. What are some of the basics that we may not have touched on that people need to know about credit? How do people maintain good credit in general?
Well, part of what I do and help people is when we talk about building their credit, being responsible. It goes back again to goals, personal goals. What exactly we want to do when we establish that credit, and learning some of those steps and practicing some of those principles, to increase your credit worthiness.
Okay. And so you're a credit consultant. Can people contact you and get you to assist them in terms of cleaning their credit?
Yes, people can contact me, and I can set them up and guide them in terms of what they need to do to improve their credit.
Okay. Very cool. All right.
Well,
Well,
I
so
don't
again,
get alone. So there's a team of folks who really is good support for what it is that we do.
okay, very cool. So yeah, so today, and again, we'll do this. T Dub, I see you, baby. There's a number of levels, in terms of information that we can provide to people. But today, I wanted to do the basics so that people have, at least a basic understanding of, how credit works and what they can do to be a little more proactive. Anything else that's basic that you wanted to basic tidbits you wanted to give people?
Just start taking control. Understand what's on your report. Be responsible. Things happen, but when they happen, just realize that you can get out of it. I tell people there isn't any perfect person. That you may see things out there that somebody has this $500,000 house. That's nothing is perfect. People still getting situations. All right. We got to stop comparing ourselves to other people in terms of what's happening or our perceptions of what's actually going on, and that tends to hold people back too. And so it goes back again when we talk about personal responsibility. I'm looking at my stuff. I'm not looking at anybody else's stuff. I'm looking at my stuff. I'm looking at what I need to do to get into a better situation. Which is why I go back to what I said earlier, that everyone's situation being different when they come into this game or ready to play. It's going to be different things that they're actually going to look at and things that they're actually going to need to do.
Okay, cool. So, listen, so if you're out there, you're a realtor, you could work with Preston James so that you can get some of your clients ready to make purchases. If, you're just an average consumer and you're trying to clean up your credit so you can get a car, a better car loan, or you can get a house or a better home loan. These are, some of the things that he talked about today. These are the basics. The things that you need to understand so that you can actually take control yourself. And we're going to do this again. I want to be able to provide some real information to people in credit, especially in these trying times during this pandemic. Credit is very, very important. There are people still buying cars and still buying houses during the pandemic. And, if you lose your job, if you have really good credit, you can get lines of credit, loans, and start a business and fund it yourself. So credit is very, very important. So anything else, Preston, before we close this one out, and then we'll set up part two and give them more information. But anything else that you wanted to throw at them tonight?
Actually, no. I think we did a pretty good job of giving the basics. I just like to just tell people, if you don't play, you cannot possibly win. You must play to win, and in order to play, you have to understand the rules.
You got to be in it. We've got Rick Aaron. What's up, Rick? He's got a question, Preston. He asks, what does it mean when a person gives you a new profile, which includes a different social security number? He wants to know, is that legal?
Um, I am not an attorney. Um, it doesn't sound good to me. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Hey Rick, if somebody said that they're gonna give you a new social security number, unless their name is Uncle Sam, I don't think that's a good one. I don't. But there are ways. Rick, you just came into the show. There are ways that you can actually restore your own profile, and there are credit professionals like Preston who can actually help you restore your credit profile. But if someone's going to give you a new profile, they're more than likely breaking the law. So that's not what you do as a credit professional, is it, Preston? You don't
No,
give people new social security numbers.
no, doesn't sound good.
Yeah, that's actually, all jokes aside, Rick, that's a felony. Because you can't just create another profile. You can't create another social security number unless you go through the government. And typically, if you're in the witness protection program, then you'll get a new social security number. But what that means, and again, I know people who used to do this back in the day. That what that means is they do assign you a whole new credit profile, and it isn't legal. It's just not. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I wouldn't do it, but it does happen. Carabelink, I'm the media. That's a T Dub. That's our frat brother Preston. He has a question too. He wants to know how long will it take, and what types of credit do you need to reach an 800 credit score, starting with a 720.
Okay. First part, how long does it take? Each person's situation is different. And so with the system that we work with, we tell people if you have things that you're either trying to build or if you're trying to dispute, you want to maybe take have maybe a 3 to 6 month plan. All right. Because people's situation didn't happen overnight. So you don't want one of those things that the last question asked about a new profile that it took me 10 years to mess it up. How can I get out of it in 30 minutes? So again, each person's situation goes back again to what their goals are, is going to determine how long it's going to be. When you get with our program, we say have a plan for maybe at least 3 to 6 months. Now, you did mention from 720 to 800. That's a totally separate situation. That might mean I need to look at my variety of credit. I may have too many inquiries on there. I may have on one of my credit cards, I may be over the utilization. Again, each situation might be different, but then you will need to determine what you want to do, because we also have a tool, a credit building tool for people who want to figure out ways to improve their credit score.
Okay, so yeah, I hope that answered this question. I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah. So these again, people, these are really, really trying times, and credit is very, very crucial. Even if you haven't lost your job, some other things may have changed. There's a lot of shifting. We're in the middle of a huge shift right now, and even as we come out of the pandemic, people really have to figure out. The world has changed. Things are different, and they aren't going to necessarily go back to the way they were. A lot of jobs that have been lost are not coming back. There's a lot of things that have changed that won't come back. And moving forward, credit is huge. It's huge, and that's why I wanted to do a show with this in-house resource, my own brother, who has learned how to play the credit game. And you should pick up a copy of his book, Playing the Credit Game. Give him the email address again, Preston.
Yes, playing the credit game at gmail.com.
Right. So if you email him, you can order a copy of the book, but you can also ask some basic questions that may lead to you using him as a credit consultant. Because one of the things I do know is that credit is complicated. Playing that credit game, it's not easy. It's not easy to learn. So you do need someone to guide you through. If you're listening on Facebook, please like and share. Please like and share. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Bridge, and hit the notifications button, so that's the little bell, so that you'll know when I'm going live. I'm going to bring Preston back so that we'll have a whole nother discussion and give out, more information. But you should pick up a copy of his book, and you should email him, start a dialogue, so that you can learn yourself. You can learn how to play the credit game. So anything?
Daryl,
Yes.
also my Facebook page is Playing the Credit Game. So you can hit me up on Facebook, Playing the Credit Game.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and most people are on Facebook, even if you're listening from YouTube. Yeah, you can go to his Facebook page, Playing the Credit Game. And the biggest thing, of course, all of his information ain't free. Some of the info is to be sold, not to be told. But the very basic of basics, he'll work with you and kind of bring you along, because everybody, especially African Americans, we really need to be getting in. Look, our last president, that dirty bitch, played. He pretended that he was some smart mogul, but basically he was just playing the credit game very, very well. Donald Trump was bankrupting companies left and right. And maybe next time we talk about credit, Preston, we'll talk about corporate credit, which
Yes.
is which isn't as complicated as people think it is. And so we have to have some understanding. Especially now. I'm gonna say this. We had this ignorant ass broad who posted a few months ago. She said during the pandemic you should get yourself an LLC and create generational wealth. It was so damn stupid because she said get an LLC for $199, which isn't real. But even if you get an LLC, she left out all the steps. You don't just get an LLC and then you have generational wealth. If you get a corporation, whether it's an S corp, a C corp, an LLC, or even a nonprofit corporation, you have to actually establish corporate credit so that you can actually make purchases, start the business. And that's one of the things that we're in the business too. Preston is my business partner. One of the things we do, we actually help people establish a corporation and then get corporate credit. So you can establish a corporation separate from yourself and it can get credit. And then you can build an actual business. So these are the things that other cultures, they just know. They grow up getting this information. Most African Americans, we have no idea. We don't know how credit works. Like I said, we go to the car dealership, we fill out the form, give them our credit score, give them our social security number, and then we close our eyes and pray. And we got to stop that.
That's right.
We got to take control. So, any last words, Preston? Again, we'll do this again and give more information. I thank you for coming on the show and trying to help people out. Any parting words that you want to leave people with?
No, again, Daryl, I appreciate sharing this platform with you. I just want to share to people: play to win. You got to be in it. It won't happen overnight. You can't just wait for things to just go away. If you think your credit is bad, I'll just wait 7 to 10 years and it automatically be fine. There is nothing magical. You have to take control of what's out there about you.
That's right.
Play to win.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Preston James. Thank you for everybody who was watching tonight and people who are going to watch it afterwards. We usually get a lot of people who watch it afterwards, and that's okay. You can still go into the chat room and ask questions, and Preston will answer those questions to the best of his ability. But hit him up at playingthecreditgame@gmail.com. That's my brother Preston James, new author, playing the credit game. My name is Daryl James, and you have been on The Bridge. Peace.
Goodbye.